It is 6 o'clock, and I call the meeting to order. And we will begin with an invocation by Councilman Eichner.
Will you stand and pray with me? Lord, as we come together tonight, we ask that you be with us, be with our thoughts, be with our words, be with our minds, and be with our hearts. We also ask that you be with all of our troops all over the world. Keep them safe. Let them know that we appreciate what they do for us. And also be with our police and firemen, the people here who keep us safe, take care of us every day. Let them know that they are appreciated. We thank you, Lord, for the great community we live in, and we just ask that you help us to make it the best that it can be. Amen.
All right. The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good. We come now to community announcements, and Stuart Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor, and welcome to everybody tonight. Just got a couple of announcements, and one of them I'm going back almost a week, but I just want to point out we had a great 4th. We had heat, we had rain, and we had Robert Earl out in the river. So it was a great time, another great turnout this year. A little bit less than usual, I think, because we did have that rainstorm right about 6 o'clock, which I don't think anybody out there was complaining about. I personally want to thank Mr. Keene for his continuing support of Kerrville. And I especially want to thank the Kerrville Police and Fire Departments. Did a great job out there that day in making sure that everyone stayed safe and that the fireworks show came off. And, of course, the Parks and Recreation Department did another great job putting this together. So, and thanks to all of y'all who attended. We had a great time. All right, tomorrow morning, or actually tomorrow afternoon, excuse me, if anybody wants to come out to the library at 1:30, we're going to have a special guest, Donna Ingham, and she's going to be talking about Tall Tales and True, and these are all Texas-based stories, which isn't surprising because she grew up in Texas. She grew up in the Texas Panhandle in the South Plains, listening to stories. And after retiring from a career as an English professor, she found a second career as a storyteller. So really looking forward to that. That starts, as I said, at 1:30. It's free, it's open to the public, and it's in the meeting room there on the lower level of the library. So y'all, if you get a chance, go on out and hear her. I'm sure she's got some great stuff. And finally, Movies in the Park is back this Friday. This is one of our most popular events. And this week is The Little Mermaid. Begins around 9 o'clock at Louise Hayes Park. It's free for all attendees, and we also have free popcorn. So I'd definitely make it out there for that. We've got three more of these events. The next two, this one's at Louise Hayes Park. The next two will be at Kerrville Shriner Park, and then we'll close out August 10th back at Louise Hayes Park. And if you have any questions about that, you can contact the Parks and Recreation Department. It's all out on our website as well. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our Citizens Forum. Persons with business not scheduled on the agenda may speak to the City Council at this point. Okay, let's move on.
He has one?
Sorry.
Apparently you have one.
Okay. All right, Karen Rockoff. Okay, hi.
I'm not as well prepared tonight as I thought I was going to be, but I had to make some changes and I need y'all's help to do it. I'm Karen Rockoff. I'm a certified arborist. I'm a master landscaper, and I've been in this business for 28 years. I resided in Kerrville and Kerr County for the last 10 years. And my fight the past 3 years has been oak wilt, basically. And another battle that we've also had are tree cutters and contractors and landscapers that aren't licensed, certified, and that are doing a pretty poor job, in my opinion. Excuse me. So with that, I'm not sure how we go along in city council and how to address these kinds of issues that are going on. But Comanche Trace is my main clientele right now. So watching that spread, the disease spread throughout Comanche Trace. I can't control Mother Nature, but when tree cutters or companies are coming into the community and doing damage, that can be stopped, and that should be stopped in my eyes. So I get very passionate every time I go to a client's house, and I ask my staff today, how many clients do I have in this region? And to date, we don't know for sure, but I have about 800 clients in Kerr County, Gillespie, Medina, Bandera. And this isn't one property I've seen. This is hundreds and thousands of properties and thousands of trees that are dying because contractors are doing it all wrong. In Houston, and everybody hates Houston, but we have ordinances there. And while I was living there, I hated all those ordinances and all that tree protection and all that fencing and all those requirements that us as contractors had to go through just to do a landscape job or just to do an irrigation job. But now being in Kerrville, I appreciate those laws that we had in place, because I go to properties now that I have to look at homeowners and say, you just lost thousands of dollars and there's nothing I can do to help you. There's no laws, there's no ordinances. Had the contractor sprayed the cuts correctly? Had he not cut it this time of the year when the beetle was active? So on and so on and so on. Did he clean the equipment? There's nothing to protect anybody in this county against this disease. There's no information on the city website, which I've asked the last mayor to put on. And so I'm just here basically to help my clients, those property owners, and also all the trees out there that are dying on the hands of, you know, needless contractors that need education. San Antonio is, what, 65 miles from here? I am licensed in San Antonio to cut and to prune. I don't ever go that far. This is my hometown now. This is my region. All I care about is Kerrville. And that's why I'm here tonight, because I don't want to look up in 10 years or have my grandkids go, well, there was that big oak. Matter of fact, there's one at Clay and Water Street right now dying. She's probably over 250 years old. I called the Callow Foundation. I called the city. I said, I would treat that baby for free. Give me permission. I didn't get a phone call back. So as my stance here, I need your help to help everybody and hopefully show something and show some homeowners that we care and that we're trying and that we're trying to change our ways, so to speak, because we don't need to be a Tree City USA. We don't need to have a certified arborist on staff, but we need to care a little bit more. We need to, you know, do some more planting, bring some K-pub trees back. Oak wilt, I just diagnosed on Monterey oak, which is an unusual thing, but it's here in Kerr County, and we've got a lot of trees that, you know, homeowners just aren't aware of, that they keep wasting money. So anyway.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask City Manager, where would we refer that issue?
Well, the basic issue of licensing and permitting, we do not do that here. As far as the tree at Clay and Water, that's Callow property and would be their jurisdiction. So it's a little bit of the Wild West here when it comes to this kind of an issue.
So there's not much protection now.
No, as far as what we can do though, is we can put it on a future agenda item to be discussed. As far as
Yeah,
looking into something.
that's all I ask is so we can kind of bring our research to y'all and we can show you where we're mapping out these issues and what properties right now. I've got legal cases that I'm helping property owners, you know, rectify the situation on their properties as well.
Okay, all right. Then I suggest we bring it back, get in touch with you, and see where we go. But as the city manager's indicated, right now we're pretty limited.
Right. And
it's
a city and a county type thing in the state of Texas.
And one of the things we really are committed to is protecting the natural beauty of the area. So
Yes, sir.
you will leave with the secretary a phone number, contact info.
I shall.
All right, good.
Thank you.
I was supposed to call you too because you.
I know.
I know, so I would love your card.
I will leave
We
several.
have some trees we need
Thank
you to
you.
look at.
Thank you, yeah. Everybody, I know,
You've
but
been
yeah,
highly
thank you.
recommended actually, so.
Yeah, I know. And there's just one of me, and that's the reason I'm here. You know, in Austin, I got 300 certified arborists screaming and protecting trees and hugging them all day long. I'm just one person. I can't get to everybody. I try, but, Yeah, thank you,
Well,
thank
thanks
you,
for being
everybody.
here tonight.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks. Okay. We have a couple of resolutions of commendation. Marty, if you would come up here. Marty Leonard has served on the Planning and Zoning Commission as an alternate commissioner with the date of service beginning December 13, 2016. And whereas Marty Leonard has served faithfully and dutifully on said commission, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Kerrville, Kerr County, Texas, that Marty Leonard be recognized for outstanding service as a commissioner on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that on behalf of the citizens of Kerrville as well as ourselves individually, we wish to express our sincere appreciation for contributions to the city and the community, passed and approved this 10th day of July 2018, signed Brenda Craig, City Secretary, and Bill Blackburn, Mayor, and the members of the council. And Marty is now serving on the Kerrville Independent School District Board, and he grew up here, and his father was in the fire department here for years. 3 decades, all right, okay, good. Marty, thank you. Now, Cheryl Pattillo has served as a member of the Economic Improvement Corporation with the date of service beginning June 10, 2014. And whereas Sherry Pattillo has served faithfully and dutifully on said board, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Kerrville, Kerr County, Texas, that Sherry Pattillo be recognized for outstanding service as a member of the Economic Improvement Corporation, and that on behalf of the citizens of Kerrville as well as for ourselves individually, we wish to express our sincere appreciation for her contributions to the city and the community, passed and approved this 10th day of July 2018. Signed Brenda Craig, City Secretary, Bill Blackburn, Mayor, and the council members.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Don't be a stranger.
Sherry and I worked together on the staff of Partners in Ministry for a number of years. Okay, now we have a group to come up here.
Mayor, we had the introduction of the airport manager first.
Oh, okay, yes, thank you. All right, Bruce, you'll introduce Mary to us? There you go, right there.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, Council. It's indeed a happy time, and it's a pleasure to introduce this nice lady to you in just a moment. She comes to us from a great organization. For the last 21 years, she has officed in downtown San Antonio at the corporate headquarters of HEB, where she was the senior real estate manager for that wonderful company, arguably one of the best companies in Texas, in my opinion. She owns her own aircraft. She flies it herself. She has achieved an instrument rating, which is no small order for those of you that understand flying. And on top of that, she's a licensed civil engineer. So she fits our airport perfectly. We're not only an airport, but we're a leasing company as well. So that fits her motif really nice, very nicely. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce the airport manager, Mary Rohr.
So I've been the airport manager now for, I think, 3 weeks. So Bruce let me go off last week without my training wheels on, so I was out there last week on my own. But it's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed meeting a handful of you, a handful of staff, our folks at the county, and it's been a wonderful experience. I look forward to improving and keeping our airport safe, make sure everything works out there, and basically work on engaging with the pilot community as well as our local community. So come on out, say hi, and I'm enjoying my first couple weeks, and I look forward to my job. Thank you.
She brings a great combination of skills, and when I saw her with a bunch of pilots out there, she knows the lingo. And, so, all right. Okay, now, if you would come up here and join me. Let me tell you, as they are coming, this is a certificate of recognition to the Kerrville Shriner Park Butterfly Garden Volunteers. Now, I want to ask you, how many of you have been to the butterfly garden out at the park? Okay. I was, for not the first time, I was out there today, and it is very interesting and very peaceful. And so when you go out Bandera Road and you pass on the right, the entrance to the park, the main entrance on the left, you come in there, and then just down to your left is the butterfly garden. It's quite impressive. Okay, certificate of recognition is hereby presented to the Kerrville Shriner Park Butterfly Garden Volunteers. The butterfly garden was designed and installed in the year 2000 by the Friends of Kerrville Shriner State Park. In 2006, the garden was certified as a Monarch Way Station by the Monarch Watch Program. Since then, the Kerrville Shriner Park Butterfly Garden volunteers maintain the garden to foster a healthy environment and ecosystem for the butterflies. Without the help and expertise from these volunteers, the garden would not be nearly as successful of an amenity to the park system. The garden is not only beautiful, but serves a purpose. Butterflies and other pollinators pollinate over 75% of the world's flowering plants. These pollinators help plants reproduce, which helps strengthen ecosystems and maintain life-sustaining biological diversity in nature. City staff sincerely appreciate the hard work and dedication by these volunteers. And again, a word of appreciation, and actually I'd like for you to come up here as head of Parks and Recreation, and as I present this, but I just realized I hadn't signed it, so I'm all right. Larry, and to all of you, thank you. Good point. All of these volunteers are with the Hill Country Master Naturalist Program, which is another great program. Okay.
And we're available if people have questions about native plants and anything in the environment.
Okay, they're available if you want information about native plants and other things in the environment. All right? Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
This isn't the time for the future agenda items, but since you're talking about that, you might look into, or we should look into, re-upping with the Mayor's Monarch Pledge thing that we used to have, just as a future.
All right, okay. Councilman Baruti was talking about the pledge we used to have, the
Mayor's Monarch Pledge.
Mayor's Monarch Pledge?
Yeah, just as a future agenda item, we ought to look into doing that.
All right. Okay. Let's see. Now, we come to the consent agenda. And those items will be considered unless someone on council wants to pull one out.
Mayor,
They'll
I'd
be
like to
considered
remove 4E.
together. Okay, you want to pull 4B?
4E.
4E, okay.
I'd like to pull 4B and D, Boy and David.
Okay. So for B, D, and E.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
all right.
fine.
All right. That leaves us one item, 4C.
Short item.
I'm sorry, 4A, yeah, 4A.
I'll make a motion to pass
Yeah.
4A and what, 4C?
Yeah, 4C.
Yes.
Okay. Motion has been made that we pass 4A and 4C.
I will second.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
If you'll please vote.
We don't say aye, we vote.
Yeah.
It's hard,
We can say
hard
aye.
habit to break.
All right, it is a 5-0 vote, and we will proceed then to 4B. Professional services agreement with Marmon Mock Architect for the aquatics feasibility study of the amount of $85,000. Okay.
Good. I just have a couple of questions. I guess it would end up being for Ashley if I can. You know, looking at the cost breakdown or how they did it, I understand it's just, you know, we asked them to give us a sort of a detailed breakdown. I understand it's kind of rough estimates, but we're looking to come out with deliverables that are looking at 3 different scenarios. That's correct, right? The Olympic pool or the facility sort of just repaired as it is, if you will. And then another scenario would be repaired and adding some recreational enhancements. And then the third would be some form of a indoor facility upgrade, if you will, right?
Potentially, depends on what comes out of the public input process.
Right. So with that, I was actually expecting to see a little more detail in the feasibility effort towards costing, fixing it in as it is. And it seems, I mean, they explicitly are excluding extensive analysis of the current facility to the extent of how much it would cost to repair it. Does that mean we're not really, I guess, what's your preference on the 3 scenarios? Do you have as Parks Director, do you have a hope or desire in which way we're coming out of this?
Yeah, first let me answer the first question.
Okay.
That part of the analysis is looking at the existing facility to identify the problems with it, the infrastructure issues, the pool plaster, and to give us a cost to say, here's what it would cost to address and fix those issues. And then they'll also be looking at, depending on the public input process, the other concepts and the other scenarios coming out of that and the cost estimates for that. So there's that part of it. And the recommendation from me would basically come out of what the public wants, what the community wants, what the stakeholder wants. In a perfect world, it'd be great to have 2 facilities, an auditorium to be a competitive facility and then a recreational facility too. But again, that's probably going to be the most expensive option. So I would like to see what the community and the stakeholders would like to see.
But without the extensive look at the current facility, we're not going to have a real good estimate of what that's going to cost, right?
For which one?
For just the fixing it as it is.
Right. That's what they'll be looking at.
Okay, that's good enough. That's all I really had on that one.
Okay, any other questions on that one?
I'll add one. Ashley, just,
Sure.
it says including KISD and Shrine University. Have we thought about Centerpoint, Ingram, Comfort, and OLH?
We have thought about OLH because we do know that they have a swim team and they currently swim in Fredericksburg. So we'll be reaching out to them and they'll be on our stakeholder list as well.
Okay.
In addition to the Dietrich Center and those user groups.
Okay. Do I hear a motion on that item?
I'll make a motion that we pass 4B?
Yeah,
4B
4B.
as presented.
I'll
We have-
second.
Okay, you got a second, motion second? All right, let's vote. Okay, it is passed 5-0. All right, let's go to 4D. Lease agreement, license agreement between Kona Ice Kerrville and the City of Kerrville for operations of food vendor concession in city parks.
Okay, yeah, I just have couple of questions on that one.
Sure.
I mean, I guess, used Kona Ice, so I don't have a problem with this at all. It's just some of the details of it. The Kona Ice agreement that we have here, it says it's just a general license, but then it actually is an exclusive license for snow cones. Is there a reason we didn't do a bidding for that like we did with the kayak canoe?
No, they reached out to us and submitted a proposal, and that's the route that we took, is to enter into agreement with them.
Okay, would that normally be how we, does it even matter if it's an exclusive license? Are we okay to do that? Okay, that's all I was really asking with that. And then this contract has it where Kona Ice has, they're actually going to be required to be at these 2 locations for the set hours. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's really all I was asking.
Okay.
Oh.
Any other questions?
Yeah. No, I don't. That's good.
All right, okay. Then do I hear a motion on 4D?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. We pass 4D as presented.
Okay, all right. And a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Okay. If you will vote on that. Okay. Yeah, it passes 5-0. Okay, 4E, authorizing the city manager to issue a letter of invitation in support of the U.S. Special Operations Forces exercises from August 1, 2018 to May 31, 2021. Okay, questions about that one?
Yes, I guess did the mayor, or who met with this group? Did anybody meet with them to ask questions?
I've met with them twice. The council may remember that in 2018, they actually conducted a letter of invitation to the same group to conduct exercises, and the mayor at that time met with them as well.
Okay. I've had a few questions from the community. One regarding private property. Can they refuse the use of their land?
Yes, they can.
They can, okay. I guess, what will the exercise be, and how will that affect our daily routines as a community?
It shouldn't affect the daily routines at all within the community. If everything goes according to plan, you shouldn't even know that they're here. They conduct exercises for unconventional warfare situations, intelligence, counterintelligence gathering situations, and generally they work in areas out in the county. They may schedule events that occur within the city, meetings, surveillance, that types of things in the public arena. And when they are within the city, they coordinate directly with our agency on a daily basis.
Okay.
In the last couple of times they've come forward asking this, it was a much shorter time period. Is there a reason that they switched it to 3 years?
Yes, they've been here to and asked the city on one previous occasion for this type of letter of invitation, and it was for a 1-year period of time. We received notification in December that that training period, any training activity that was scheduled during that training period was being canceled due to operational requirements. They didn't have the training assets necessary to conduct in that window. So they took a look at this, and they would like to extend this to a 3-year period of time. It doesn't mean that they're going to be doing operations continuously for 3 years, but it forestalls the potential of having to come back year after year to go through this same process over and over again.
And the county had no objections, because they got the same request, right?
That's correct.
They had no objections at all?
No.
Okay. All right.
That's all the question I have. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, then let's proceed to,
I'll make a motion that we, oh, somebody
I'll
did.
make a motion to pass 4E.
I'll
Alright.
second it.
okay. Okay, this is related to Special Operations Forces exercises. Okay, let's vote. And it's 5-0. Okay, that's the end of the consent agenda. And we will move to item 5A, public hearing and possible action, public hearing for a variance from the distance requirement for a boarding home pursuant to section 3017 of the city's code of ordinances, 1517 East Main Street. And we have some people to speak to that.
But,
Sure.
but hold on, isn't this a public hearing?
Yes.
Yes? So he's got to open the public hearing.
Sorry.
And then do that.
Okay. We are now open for public hearing.
So we're gonna let Drew at least,
Yeah.
introduce
Okay.
the item, yes.
This is a request for a variance for a boarding home at 1517 East Main Street. This is within 4 other boarding homes within a half-mile separation distance required by ordinance. That variance request does come before council with public hearing and then your action to approve that. We've been working with the applicants, reviewing the property and going through setting up for the variance and reasonable accommodation. And tonight before you is the variance of separation.
Okay.
I'd be pleased to answer any questions now or after the public hearing.
Is this the map that I was asking you about?
Yes,
earlier?
ma'am.
Okay, for some reason I didn't get it, but it does exactly what I wanted. It shows all the other homes, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Nikki Sarge, and I'm the owner of the White Lily House. Currently, we're asking for a request for a variance for the ordinance to put a sober living home for women, which falls under the boarding home permit under our ordinance. I just have a statement, I guess you would say, is pretty much, and of course, if y'all have any questions, concerns, I'm definitely here to answer. I believe I supplied y'all with what all, yes, it'll have all the culture, everything that has to do with the house. Pretty much, the whole basis of a sober living home in the first place is to integrate into the community, to be good neighbors, to learn how to be a good citizen, to just be part of the Kerrville community, just be live. I guess my statement that I have to read is, my name is Nikki Sarge, and I'm a person of long-term recovery. And what that means to me is that I have not had a drink since May 31st, 2007. And what that has allowed me to do is to be here today, to open my For Sober home. The first 3 are no longer here, but it also allows me to be a mother and to be part of this community, to be a voting member, and to participate. I operate the White Lily House. It is a group home that is necessary to afford qualified persons with disabilities an equal opportunity to use and enjoy their housing. In particular, the group home provides a peer supportive environment that will assist the residents in their recovery and sobriety, thus ameliorating the effects of the residents' disabilities. As you know, I have tried to open the home and have been stopped by the city. There are people that are waiting to move in the home. Each day without the peer supportive environment provided by this home is another day they are being treated different by the city because of the disability. Each day without the peer supportive environment provided by the home is another day they are forced to abide by different rules than everyone else, only because they are with disabilities. And what I mean by disabilities is they're covered under a class. We are covered under a class under fair housing that puts us underneath the disabilities. So that's pretty much my statement. Do y'all have any questions or?
We get to ask questions
No.
at this point? We're okay in asking questions in public hearing?
Well, we don't, in this case, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, because I only had, you had other homes. You don't currently have, like, there's not a White Lily somewhere?
There's White Lily House that we're waiting, of course.
Okay, I thought you had, did
We
you
used to have, yes.
Okay, all right.
I used to have the Red Lotus home and the Blue Lotus home.
Okay,
At the starting of the ordinance in 2013 is
Okay.
whenever I couldn't come out even. So I promised my family that I would never have them not benefit from me
right,
because I'm spending all the money on the home.
right, okay,
So,
all
I
right.
have a question.
Yes.
Were you aware of the distance that your home would be in proximity to the other homes in the neighborhood?
yes, I was aware of it. The feeling that I got from the neighborhood that we picked was, that, first of all, it was very hard to find a home with 4 bedrooms, 2 bath, large backyard. We have 2 trauma therapy dogs. So that to create the environment and to really to cultivate the environment. And when this house sort of just fell into our lap, we moved. We were outside of the city limits before, and we needed to be inside because the women could not walk anywhere. They couldn't get to work. There was a problem with transportation. There was a problem with being able to get to appointments, to get to MHDD, to get to any of our local resources so that they could actually utilize them.
Well, thank you. That was my curiosity,
Yes.
because you went ahead with your plans,
Yes.
and that's one of the, infractions with this particular.
Yes, and
is
also
the distance between the other homes.
Definitely,
So-
and I agree that I knew this was here. The problem I had with it was they're not next door, and our neighbors that we have met during the day love us. So, or that we have gotten the feel for. And that was the whole point. And we had to sort of move out of the house that we were in to they were selling it. And so it was like, we had to go. So moving a house at that time was 8 women. And it went down to 6 women. And literally when we were moving in, it's whenever, because we had submitted the paperwork, we had submitted it late. A lot later than we had planned, because we weren't really expecting to move this quick, and also coming up with $1,000. So that was quite a hold. So
Am I to understand, are you living in the house now?
No.
No one is?
No.
No.
No,
And
2 people are.
How many will the house accommodate?
The house will accommodate, as a variance request, it will accommodate 8 according to the ordinance. And then I do have a request in for reasonable accommodations to consider 2 more.
Do you have children?
Yes, I do have 2 children.
Well,
I
no,
don't live at the home.
Any of the people occupying the house, are there children there? Or will
Yes,
be?
there are women who have children. A lot of times they're just getting visitation back. And so if the house votes that the children can come and stay for the weekend during their visitation to start cultivating the parenting, then we allow it. Because it's really important to us, for me, I wouldn't be standing right here if it wasn't for a sober home and being able to visit with my children and learn to be a parent in recovery.
And if
Thanks.
this were voted down, what would you do with the property?
Well, with the property, we would have to try to figure it out. We're just pretty much, putting it in God's hands and hoping for the best and planning for the worst, kind of thing. Right now, my house has been very occupied, my personal home. And that has been quite interesting. My kids are, fortunately, right now at camp, makes it a little easier. But yes, it has been an interesting situation.
Well, I applaud your efforts. It just has to be a good fit for everyone.
Definitely.
And that's what we're here to do, is look at everyone's concerns and consider all the neighbors and yourself as well. So that's what we'll do. But I do applaud your efforts in general and what you're doing. It's very necessary, and I personally have had some experience, not me personally, but in our family, we've had that experience, and it's a help to have a place to go. So
Thank you, I appreciate
all the
that.
best to you.
Do we have anyone else to speak?
Yes,
All
probably
right.
a lot of people.
Yeah, Ms. Chatter?
Yes. My name is Larry Hunter. I live at 1604 East Main Street, about 3 or 4 houses down from the proposed house. My reasons for opposing this house are purely selfish. I think that the concentration of 5 of these places within a half mile will negatively impact my property values and my ability to resell my house at a future date. Imagine, you may have a letter from me on this, but basically, under full disclosure, I'd have to tell people when I'm trying to sell my house, well, there are 5 halfway houses right around us. That's not going to make it easy to sell that house. That's one of the reasons I opposed it. The second thing is I think that the concentration of these houses is going to continue in lower middle income neighborhoods because of the property values. So what we're doing, we're setting the stage to continue to reduce the value of properties in those neighborhoods as we continue to concentrate these type of properties in these neighborhoods. So again, I'm operating from a selfish perspective, but I'm operating as I bought my house in an R1 neighborhood. This is not an R1 operation. I know y'all have to give these groups their thing under fair housing, but y'all did set some restrictions, and those restrictions that these houses should not be placed within a half mile of each other. For me, you know, these operations are commercial. They are for profit. These operations are not single family by very definition. There's 10 people going to be living in this house because I'm sure that if they get this variance, I'm sure they'll get the other variance for 2 more people. I was actually a little concerned that they'd already got enough votes from you people to get this through since they'd already started working on this thing 2 months ago. So that made me thinking when I saw this variance request come through on my house that that they'd already secured some votes, and in listening to it, maybe they hadn't. So I was, being the old newspaper person, I was naturally pessimistic about what was going on in the background. I mean, that's just, I'm sorry, but that's, in this day and age, that's what we are. But, you know, I've lived at this house, in my house, for 28 years. And I've seen the neighborhood. The neighborhood really took a stab in the heart when y'all opened up East Main all the way through. The traffic now has obviously increased dramatically. You know, if you live on that corner, you know the noise. And that was, of course, you know, was primarily to benefit Shriner College. But but we can't continue, you know, I just would hate to continue to see us to take actions that further deteriorate the value of these neighborhoods. I mean, that's really, again, that's, and I would also point out that city staff is recommending that y'all deny this request. And I know that some of y'all have made the statement that y'all will not micromanage our city operations, that y'all will defer to the expertise of city staff when y'all make these kinds of decisions. So in this case, I am hoping y'all defer to city staff. That's really all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thanks,
Hunter?
Larry. Thank
Okay.
you. Do we have anyone else to speak to this issue?
My name's Denise, and I'm here to represent basically my parents' home. And I think what the gentleman said here is basically what they wanted to say. They own their own home, and in their case, the home that they're wanting to make a boarding home, their backyard actually backs up to my parents' backyard. It's a long backyard. It's in the corner. Actually, they live on Travis Street. They have their house, and then there's a corner house, and then, of course, the 1517 house backs up, like I said, to their backyard. And, you know, they're basically wanting to just enjoy their retirement and enjoy their house. And like the gentleman said, you know, it's not just a family living there, it's several people living there, and that their concern is that disturbing their basically backyard piece. I don't know if it would make sense, but like I said, the gentleman here, I think he's pretty much said everything that, you know, my parents wanted to say. I wasn't prepared to come. They just kind of threw me under the bus and said, we can't go, can you make it? So I was like, okay, let me see what it's all about. This is my first time. So, but basically they're in opposition to go ahead and have the boarding home in their backyard. So, like I said, I think the gentleman here basically said everything that they would have liked to have said. And like I said, they're just opposing to it since that's their home and they're retired and they're just planning to stay there for hopefully a long time for me. So that's basically what I wanted to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Okay. You have anyone else?
Oh, I'll be quick. My name is Cade Sarge. I wasn't going to talk today, but I feel like I need to. So, I feel like if we dove a little bit deeper into this, we find that really statistics show that in lower income housing, there's more drug addiction, drug use, drug dealing than there would be boarding homes, statistically across the state of Texas. There's an organization called NIMBY, which is not in my backyard. And it's a sad situation when a city like this and a community like this, that so many people who are in recovery, active in recovery, contribute to the city and the success of the city, from doctors and lawyers and teachers and business owners to CEOs, to city employees. A lot of us are in recovery. A lot of us have family members in recovery. Property value doesn't go down from a boarding home. I mean, if you had an expert tell you what would bring property value down for a boarding home, sober living women, mothers and women who have rules and restrictions and community service requirements. You know, this is a Christian home. These are wonderful young women who struggle with addiction, right? So I'm 11 years sober myself. I don't disclose that to everybody, but I think it's important. I'm a very active member in this community. Very active member. I'm a homeowner. I had trouble drinking. I couldn't stop. And so I got sober. I did it in sober living. I know there's some city employees who have some mutual friends of mine who know some people who lived in sober living and the impact it had on them and their lives. So anyway, I understand. I'm a homeowner, and I would understand the concern to have maybe something a little bit different, something we don't understand in our neighborhood. But I can tell you I'd rather have 7 young women, young mothers, who are active in a program of recovery and active in a program of seeking God, than I would want to have, 10 families piled into a house with furniture on their front yard and no rules, no restrictions, loud music at night. So, I mean, there's a difference, and I think we're pointing our finger in the wrong direction. So, it is what it is. Alcoholism is a disease, and it exists in a lot of people's lives. Many of you know people. Many of you know people. Your family members, your friends. All right, and one day maybe your kids will need our help to turn their lives around. So anyway, I would hope that we dig deep and come together collectively to accept something that might be just a little bit different. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Cheryl Arterburn, and I am the owner of the House of Hope Foundation, which consists of 2 recovery homes. I am not opposed to Nikki opening her home. I know that Nikki is a very strong member of the recovery community, as well as her husband. I've worked with them at treatment facilities, and they are very strong in the recovery community here in Kerrville. I am not opposed, and I do have a home not too far from where she's trying to open. I think, we need good homes for women that are really trying to turn their lives around, as well as men, because I also have a men's home. My concern, my issue is a couple years ago, my ex and I had a home, or he had a home. We got back together. It was a 3-bedroom home that he didn't need anymore, but had a lease attached to it. And so we had 3 women that had come up out of sober living to rent each bedroom. There was 1 to a room. It wasn't going to be a boarding home. They were just going to be roommates sober. And the city wouldn't give me a variance, as they gave me hours to get the 3rd person out, because you couldn't, anything over 2 was a boarding home. And so as a result, we had to finish out the lease and have 2 people living there. I'm also a mother of a daughter that's in college. Actually, she just graduated. And she and 3 other roommates rented a home, 4 young women getting a degree, 4-bedroom home, and there was no issue. But of course, this was in Richmond, Virginia. I do know that there's 17,000 students at Schreiner University, and there's got to be college students doing the same thing, 2 or more, or more than 2. So, guess where I'm going with all this is that Nikki does run a good home. There's been a lot of women that have gotten their lives straightened out, who've gotten their families back, their children back, and I welcome her to the neighborhood. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. One more, and, okay? Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, esteemed council members and public officials of the City of Kerrville and fellow citizens, thank you. My name is James Reeves. I live 2 houses down from the proposed 1517 East Main variance. And I believe I've sent a letter. Thank you, Council, Mr. Hayes, for, I think everyone got a copy of this. And it strikes me that this council, the first few parts of the agenda were about beautification and the city parks. How lucky we are to live in a beautiful city like Kerrville. And one of the things that I read as I kind of studied this is that that's a natural thing that happens with cities and communities that are kind of like vacation, that are beautiful communities. They draw the centers for recovery centers. They draw houses. Everybody wants to live in a nice place. They want to live in a nice place with nice people. Well, most people do anyway. Mm-hmm. I'm sure we have some people that we know that maybe not that way, but so I just want to say that with the opioid crisis blowing up at us and continuing to burgeon, I think that in 2013, when we made these ordinances, there was a lot of discussion about what is the need for them, and I did some research. And it turns out that, yes, they do reduce property values. They don't, according to what the studies that I read, they don't keep you from selling your home, they just keep you from selling as much. Now, that's kind of, as Ms. Herrera pointed out, some of us came here to retire. And one of the things that we're doing here is that we're hoping that when we kind of reach the end of whatever we have in income, that we can put this house out for reverse mortgage. The value of your house affects your income when you're in a reverse mortgage. One of the other things that we know is that the concentration of group homes causes an increase in the drug traffickers. So I know that I'm not really pointing a finger. I know we were called pointing a finger. I'm not pointing a finger. I think these people really need and should have the best care possible, and there should be a bed everywhere for somebody that needs it. But let's don't put them all in one place and make a recovery house ghetto out of East Main, okay? That East Main traffic is terrible. You can barely back out. Okay, I know I'm out of time. But I would say that, the street's busy and increasing the traffic, decreasing the home values, discouraging young families with children, and costing the older citizens part of their income by granting another variance for the establishment of an additional sober living house in this neighborhood is bad government. Bad government. We wrote the ordinances to prevent these exact circumstances. We've got a problem in this country and in this state and probably in this city. We need to deal with it. Okay, they're gonna run over us if we don't start making sure that we enforce these ordinances. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have
Sorry,
any other
Randy.
speakers on this subject? Okay. Do I hear a motion on 5A, the issuing of a variance for 1517 East Main?
Yeah, you got, first you got to close the public hearing.
Sorry.
Close the public hearing.
Yeah, right. Public hearing closed. Okay,
And then maybe we have discussion.
now, discussion?
Yeah.
Questions? Motion?
All right, I'll ask some questions. I think this is, yeah, it's gonna end up, yeah, come back up because they're gonna be for you. I mean, the first thing is that this is a dilemma, obviously. I mean, this is a difficult position for us to be in. So I want to make something, at least the way it works in my brain. I'm not seeing this as a sober home. I'm seeing this as a boarding house. Okay, so as far as that goes, I've been looking at this as an apartment house. I mean, boarding house. I mean, I don't care what type of person is in there, right? So you mentioned something before about the amount of, the number, by our ordinance as it stands now, the number of people that you would be allowed to have in there is limited by a number of different factors. One is the square footage of the home, the number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, but then the parking, off-street parking. Best I can tell, there's a driveway there that looks like it can fit 3 cars, not 4. You said in one of the documents that you're limited to 4 anyways by the lease. Is that correct? Okay. If I'm reading our ordinance right, that becomes the limiting factor in all of them. And I think it only gets you 5 people, does it not? Does anybody know? I'm pretty sure it does. It gets you, that limits it to 5 people based on that parking. If you had 4, if you actually only have 4 parking spots, I think you can only get 5 people in there. So when you were going to come, you're not doing it now, but you would have to be coming to us for reasonable accommodations to actually, you're shooting for 10. So you'd be asking for 5 above what the ordinance says.
But we're just here today for the request.
I understand that, but if we grant the variance on the distance, that'll be the next one, right? I mean,
Council member, don't forget, under the ordinance, reasonable accommodation goes to staff first, and then.
right, so we may not see it. Right,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
So that's actually part of the thing, the reason I wanted to bring it up. But the other is, this is sort of an issue I have with variances in general. I'm not going to sit here and say that our ordinance is a good ordinance as it is, but my issue is going to be, and I raised this the last time, it was like a year and a half ago, I wasn't on council yet, and they did one of these, and my issue was, why are we giving variances instead of looking at the ordinance? Because if the distance of half a mile is, the spacing of half a mile is a problem, and I've talked with some people that own the homes, and I understand that it is, okay. I would prefer us attack the ordinance rather than keep coming with variances. And so well, you talked about we may not get to see the reasonable accommodation if staff approved it. Is there even a way for us to put, if we were to approve, this is just a question, if we were to approve the variance of this, are we able to put a limit on the people?
Like condition?
Are we able to put a condition of that?
Okay, so I don't know if this was included in your packet, but this is what the ordinance says. After your decision, it says, if at the conclusion of the public hearing, the City Council grants the applicant's request for variance, the City Council may impose additional conditions intended to mitigate the impacts. And I take that to mean impacts of the distance requirement, because that's what the variance is about, of course.
So
You talked
basically,
about that.
the answer would be no then probably, right?
Well,
'Cause
unless you match that up with mitigating the distance requirement, then
Yeah.
that's kind of the finding you have to make.
Okay. That was leading me to a different question. I forgot what it was.
Can I answer
Go ahead. Go ahead.
the question about the parking?
Yeah.
That would sort of say that everyone has a car. Right now, I think there is 2 women who want to move in there who have cars, and that's it.
Right,
And
but
it's very normal for people to not have cars. I
right,
mean,
it would be normal, but keeping in mind that those would be the people that you have today. And if we were to give say a reasonable accommodation, that stays with the building, does it not? So let's say down the road, however it's done, they got approved for 10 people based on the fact that of the 10 that they're going to bring in today, only 2 of them have a car. We give them a reasonable accommodation to allow for 10, and then the next 10 people that move in all have a car. We can't do anything about that, right?
well,
The 10.
our lease says that we can't.
I know, but as far as that goes, all I'm getting at is
Oh, yeah.
you guys are limited by 4 cars in your lease,
Mhm.
and by our ordinance, 4 cars means you're also limited to have 5 people. That's really all you could have by our ordinance. So you'd be asking for a reasonable accommodation there. And I did drive by there today. It's the only day I really drove by looking at it. And that driveway is, single file. I mean, and so there was a car parked in the middle of it and 2 cars parked on the street, which I would guess if I had cars, I would do it that way all the time anyways, because who wants to block in the guy? We have to get the cars out, and all this kind of stuff. So I would think that no matter how many cars you had, you'd probably only park 1, maybe 2 in the driveway anyways. I say all that to say, I don't know. I honestly don't know what to do, my own self. The 4 homes that are within half a mile, your application listed 3 of them. Did we make contact? Did we hear anything from them? Were you one of the 4?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so that's one of them.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we should stick to the matter at hand, which is the variance itself. Because I started to bring up the parking and all these other issues, and we could go on all night. And perhaps we should have further discussions. But right before us right now is this request. And, there was information in one of the letters about parking on the street causing hazards. And that was a
and if
concern,
that
because
was
I
a
drove it
limitation
too.
that needs to be addressed, of course.
There's probably others too we should address, but what we're here to talk about today is the actual variance for the distance between the other homes. So I think we should try to stick with that, and perhaps we could come to some conclusion on that and address these concerns that we've brought up later regarding the ordinance.
All right. Do I hear a motion on this matter?
I move that we recommend denial of the request due
Okay.
to its nonconformity of the ordinance.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all right. Got a motion, second. Any further discussion, or shall we go to vote? Before we vote, I want to say, Nikki, that I believe I know what you really want to see happen in terms of health and good lives for these women. I understand that. And Kate and I have talked. And the other thing I was going to say, since being mayor, I've seen that the city and city staff is very aware of recovery issues and trying to be more informed. But I'm going to have to vote against this. And when I look at the ordinance, I look at the concerns of the neighbors and I hear the staff, I feel like it's not a variance that we can recommend. So, and I say that with sorrow. Shall we vote? Well,
Could you possibly
Yeah,
read
okay.
that motion again?
Public
Just want to
hearing.
make sure I vote the right way.
Would you read the motion?
The motion is to deny the request for variance.
All right. So if we're for that, we vote yes. Okay. All right.
All
Okay.
the votes are in.
Okay, the variance is denied 4-1. On the next issue, this is an ordinance and a second final reading regarding a new article in the traffic and vehicles section on escort of oversized loads. David, Chief, you want to say something to
Yes,
us?
sir, Mr. Mayor. This is, of course, the second and final reading of ordinance number 2018-12, amending Chapter 102 of Traffic and Vehicles by adding a new article, escort of oversized loads, which addresses the service provided by the city's police department to escort oversized vehicles through the city of Kerrville, Texas. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have about the ordinance.
Well, I had a question, but the city manager answered it. But for the benefit of the council, was curious to know if the amount, the $100 and the $300, would cover your costs, your expense, and he said yes. So, $100 a vehicle, was that something like that?
We went through a pretty extensive process in developing what the fee schedule would be and identifying the componentry for small escorts versus large escorts.
Right.
And when we went through that process, we identified what the cost would be in terms of staffing and manpower, their hourly cost, vehicle cost, any type of administrative cost that would be passed on from other areas of the city, such as, finance and setting this up for repayment. So we came to a pretty good conclusion in terms of what the actual cost would be. The proposed fee schedule is $100 for small escorts that requires 2 police escort vehicles and $350 for large escorts. So we're pretty confident about that.
That's a deal.
That assessing our, offsetting the cost for escorts.
Can I ask a question? That all makes sense, but did we put in the ordinance, or, I know it's not in the fee schedule, the definition of what small and large is? You just gave it to me, but is it written down? It just says small and large.
The next part of this is, one of the follow-on components of this is the resolution that actually amends the fee schedule.
Right, did it define it in there? I think it just calls it small and large.
Right, and I got that today, and so they were gonna talk about that. They're gonna add that as an addendum. They have it on I think, ready to go on the website. Yes. And so it's defined on the website, but I said it needs to go on the fee schedule, so we.
Okay, so it's gonna be whatever you just said. Was it 2 vehicles is the $100? Is that what we're saying?
No, it's $100 for a small load.
Right, a small load requiring.
Small load.
That's what I thought, small and large.
A small load is defined as needing 2 vehicles or 2 officers?
That's correct. 2
Okay.
vehicles, 2 officers.
Okay.
It's actually identified by the size of the load.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right, any other questions? Do we hear a motion?
Make a motion. I'd like my turn.
All right,
I'd
okay.
like to make a motion that we approve 6A, which is ordinance number 2018-12, amending Chapter 102.
Second?
Okay, well, hang on, because I got to withdraw my motion because I think I pushed the button.
Oh, well, go ahead and.
No, it's okay, I took you off.
You did? Okay, oh, I appreciate
Okay,
that.
all right. Okay.
Command decision, I like that, that's
And
good.
time to vote.
I will second. Do we
Okay,
have a second?
you got okay, second, Eichner. Okay,
Votes are all in.
okay, it's 5-0. And the next related item is 7A on amending the City of Kerrville fee schedule related to the escorts.
Correct. And this is, of course, the follow-on that deals with the fees established through the approval of this resolution that amends the city's fee schedule to identify 2 categories of oversized loads, small or large, with a corresponding fee structure of $100 for small load escorts and $350 for large load escorts. And the differentiating factor in Small versus large is the size of the unit being moved through the city limits. If it's between 10 and 16 feet in width and under 110 feet long and under 16 feet 6 inches high, then it's classified as a small escort. If it's over in any of those parameters, then it moves to the large category, and that's what triggers the larger escort fee.
Now, what about multiple loads? Is that, would it be one load or considered each vehicle?
That's per load.
Per load, okay.
All right.
And this also allowed us to remove, I guess, what we had in there is moving a house. We just pulled that one out. Is that correct? That's part of this deal?
That's correct. Currently, we have a house moving fee of $30, and that would be removed, and it would now fall under this oversized load escort parameter.
All right. Okay. Okay. Do I hear a motion on 7A?
I move that we accept 7A, resolution number 20-2018.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right. Okay, let's vote on that.
Votes are all in.
Okay, 5-0. And now, folks, I hope we're going to speed it up a little bit. So, okay.
No pressure, huh?
Yeah, you're under pressure, Ashley. Talk fast.
Okay, I
Talk
can do
fast.
that. Did we announce the agenda
Yeah, go ahead.
topic already?
Uh-huh. Yeah, we're looking at 7B, HEB Tennis Center Improvement Project.
Okay.
I make a motion we approve. Does that speed it up enough?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
good.
you can do that.
Go ahead.
That's great.
Do we have any questions?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, just a quick history. This is something that we've been working on for the past several months on the scope and the master plan for the tennis facility. We started it several months ago, and tonight we're going to explain the scope for phase 1 and kind of explain the overall master plan. So here's a graphic of the master plan in itself. I'll explain some details of it in a minute, but here's a zoomed in of the central area. We have resurfaced courts that we're looking to do in phase 1. We have some sidewalk additions and ADA issues we're addressing. We're addressing the drainage. We're addressing pro shop upgrades and some fencing issues as well. Here's an overall concept of the master plan. The overall master plan came in at about $4 million roughly on its estimates, so therefore we're looking at recommending doing it in phasing because we only have about 1.3 to finish the project out. So as I explained, the scope will consist of drainage improvements, fencing improvements, court improvements, addressing the pro shops, upgrading to ADA requirements on the sidewalks, and adding an additional pathway between the courts so there's a direct lineage passageway through the courts. Here's some pictures of the fencing and footing renovation issues that we need to look at and address. The top picture on the right shows some of the existing courts that have resurfacing issues. You can see there's cracking, and below is a picture of the courts that we resurfaced a couple of years ago. So that's what they would essentially look like. Drainage issues, as the drainage goes through the courts, and it kind of goes through the left of the courts as well. So we need to reroute the drainage so that it does not impact the courts. And we'll also do some pro shop upgrades to the exterior and interior of the building. And improve the accessibility throughout the facility as well. It's currently not ADA compliant. So the next steps would be for you to accept the master plan and approve the scope for phase 1. And then we will begin, we're about 50% on the engineering documents, and then we'll begin construction at the end of late summer and anticipate completion in mid-2019.
That's with the 1.3 million?
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
This was listed as confirmation of this. Are we just confirming something we've already voted on, or what are we doing here today?
Accepting the overall master plan and voting on the phase 1 scope. What you did before is approve the funding for it, and now we're bringing back the project and showing you what it's going to look like.
All right.
There was a preliminary scope, but then we had the public input meeting, and so some of that changed, and with the new council, we're just wanting to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Okay.
I'll
Motion
second
to
it.
approve.
I'll second it.
Delane, a second. Yeah. Okay. Then it goes to a vote.
Votes are all in.
Yeah. And that is passed 5-0. Now, I hope these next three we will be able to move a little faster. Drew?
Yes, sir. 7C is a request for approximately 4 acres annexation at 884 Harper Road. This is a petitioned annexation. Business that is looking to open is AgPro. They're looking to tie onto city water and sewer, and they're, I believe, ready to open very soon. So they're looking forward to coming into the city. And this will trigger the annexation process with public hearings coming in August and the ordinance readings coming in September.
As you're going out Harper Road toward I-10, this on the left, this is the old Longhorn Saloon and a
Yes.
variety of other things, yeah?
Mhm, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right.
It's not open now. It's, because it
Not
has a
open
sign
yet, are
saying
you?
it's open, right?
They're opening the trailer, office trailer.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right. And staff recommendation?
Yes, staff recommends approval.
All right. Okay, so that one.
I got a few questions. Where's water and sewer located?
It's currently located on the west side of Harper Road, on the
their side?
property.
Okay.
Mhm. They did, the previous property owner dedicated an easement when we built that water line.
Annexing this, will this create a donut hole?
Actually, it'll connect, this property is contiguous to the back of the Heights
Okay.
subdivision. And then the next case is contiguous to this one.
Okay. All right. Do I hear a motion on this, on 7C?
I move that we accept 7C, resolution number 24-2018.
I'll second.
Okay, got a second? All right.
All we're really doing is moving forward. We're not really
Right.
doing something, right?
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Votes are all in?
Okay, passes 5-0. You're doing well, Drew.
Thought news wasn't until 10.
7D is a .8 acre tract immediately next door on Harper Road at 874 Harper Road. And again, they're looking petition annexation. This will start the process, and these two will run concurrently with public hearing and ordinance readings.
And what is the business there?
It's a small strip center adjacent to the
Oh,
Agro.
right, okay, yeah, all right. Okay. And this is part of some continued economic development out in that area.
Mhm.
Okay. Questions, comments?
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 23-2018.
I'll second.
Okay. We get a second?
I just did.
Okay. All right.
Votes are all in?
Okay. It passes 5-0. Okay, 7E.
70 is a petition request for annexation of 59 acres off of Thompson Drive. They are looking to build a multi-use development along the river in Nimitz Lake. So these 59 acres you can see here. Here's a survey as the property exists today. It's 2 large properties. And there's a copy of the preliminary plat that they have submitted. It will be a combination of residential, apartments, and commercial uses.
I got a question. So Knapp Road, as it runs across the river, is that me, the feedback? Anyways, Knapp Road, as it runs across the river, is currently a county road, is that correct?
That's correct.
We make this annexation, does it automatically become a city road, or do we gotta take action to make it a city road? What do we do?
It would automatically become a city road, but they are proposing to close that and relocate that to a new road that services their development.
Okay, but that's not part of what we're doing here.
That's
We're
correct.
just annexing,
This is
right?
just the annexation.
Okay. And we couldn't act on that even anyways, because it's a county road, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Can you tell me on the policy of city roads, how we go about, because that amounts to abandoning a road and essentially creating a new one, correct?
That's correct.
What's our current policy on what has to happen to abandon a road?
Go through, obviously, the initial request to abandon the road. We check with all utilities that would be in the right-of-way, and adjacent property owners. I mean, typically be requested by the adjacent property owner, in which case we're working with the one owner. Then would come before council for approval.
But if there's other people that use that road, do they have a say?
They do.
They do.
Yeah, yeah. We'll go through that process.
Okay. Okay.
On the west side, I guess, northwest side of this plat, it says Knapp Road's a 60-foot right-of-way, but it's not really described, and it doesn't really show where the easement is. Is it 30 on each side of the property line, or is it 60 just on the neighbors?
This is toward the river?
No, this area over, he's on, can you go back to the other map, Drew?
Yes.
Right there at the top, it says Knapp Road, 60-foot right-of-way. And I guess, are the neighbors gonna keep that? From Thompson?
Property line runs right through the middle.
So it's 30 on each side.
Yes.
No, I think it's 30 total.
It says 60-foot right-of-way.
Okay, let me make sure we're talking about the same thing.
You got the one by the river, and you got the one running northeast from Thompson Drive to the river. I guess on the
Top left edge
Yeah.
of what we're looking at right now.
I'm talking about right here. Okay, 30 on each side.
30 on each side. So they'll be able to keep that right away for whatever access they need.
Yeah, we have no plans for that.
Okay.
For that right away.
All right. Do you hear a motion on 7E?
Hang on, because I actually got, you got speakers too? Yeah. I got an email from somebody who wasn't
Okay.
gonna be here and asked me to read a letter into the record.
And J.E. Johnson, is that who you're representing?
No, it's actually I guess it's his wife maybe, Bonnie Johnson. It's,
Okay.
and so, let me read real fast. Dear Council and City of Kerrville, I, along with other landowners who own property that abut the western edge of the subject annexation being proposed, located along the private road known as South Knapp Road South, are very much in disfavor of the plat design as it is now being before council. This plat was reviewed by the county commissioners not in open court as is customary, but in a setting at the county engineer's office. We were not informed of this hearing, or to our knowledge was this meeting published such that we could make our concerns known to the court. The developer was made fully aware of our concerns but did not convey our concerns to the commissioners at the time of the court hearing made at the county engineer's office. We believe we were denied due process. Further, the only contact from the developer's counsel was to offer us a lopsided deal to take our private road, abandon our safe access to Thompson Drive if we paid them $10 and nothing more. In closing, we do not want to block the McDonald Trust or the Thompson Drive subdivision LLC enjoyment of the pending purchase of a part of a development lands. They have property rights too. We do not wish to stand in the way of the annexation, just not as the development is currently proposed. However, we do not wish to have our property rights taken in the environmental health of our county road portion of Knapp Road and the private part of Knapp Road taken either. We ask that the council table discussion of the annexation at this time. We thank the City of Kerrville for allowing our concerns to be entered into record and would ask that we be able to have a meeting between we landowners, the developer, and city staff at some date in the near future. Sincerely, Bonnie T. Johnson and adjacent landowners. Okay, so I did my...
Mr. Mayor, if I could address those concerns, please. Justin McDonald, 2956 Dry Hollow, on part of the ownership of this tract. First of all, we're here tonight asking you only to consider annexation. We're not asking you to consider the plat. That will come later. Second of all, our attorney has attempted to contact those landowners by letter multiple times and has received no response from anyone except for one property owner who had no problem with it. We did not hear from Mr. Johnson until actually yesterday when he attempted to go, I guess, behind our back, if you will, and get a copy of our survey from our surveyor. Third off, we did not take a plat in front of the county in any means. It was not held in some backdoor meeting. There was nothing in a closed meeting done. That's against state law and it wouldn't happen. The county's smarter than that, and so are we. We did present a concept plan to the Commissioners Court in open session in a duly posted meeting a couple of weeks ago, and the county at that time chose to essentially abdicate their platting authority subject to the annexation by the city. So this would still need to go through the city's platting process. It would have to have hearings for the preliminary plat and the final plat at the P&Z Commission. and there's plenty of time to discuss this. We'd be happy to meet with Mr. and Mrs. Johnson and any other landowners that want to. Again, we've attempted to contact them, not received any response. We would still request for annexation, and we'll be happy to continue to work with them on this issue. Regardless of the roadway design, this does not change our plans for this development. We can work around that if that road needs to stay there. It would adversely affect our ability to dedicate river trail and park easements to the city, unfortunately, because those would be going in that area. But we're still very much intending to proceed forward with this development and would ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, because I read the letter. I actually informed them of the part about annexation and that the road wasn't actually part of our discussion. I also did check with the county, just because, to ask them if they had proceeded with anything, and the answer was no. So just to clear it up, nobody was accusing you of anything, at least not from up here, just so you understand.
Okay.
And I was
well, they did take action on the concept plan, but that action was simply to basically defer to you guys.
Right, but like I said, the road situation is, I think everybody, including this letter writer, is already clear on that it hasn't been moved or promised to be moved either. So.
Okay,
well,
the road is,
in response to the Johnson's email being read into the record, I'd like to read into the record that our office phone number is 257-5323, and they're welcome to contact us.
Okay.
Okay, so the road is yet to be determined. You're asking for the annexation and then come back to P&Z.
That's correct. We have run this through city staff. Again, there's no secrets here. We've presented preliminary plans, gosh, almost a year ago to the EIC board. As you're probably aware, there's a significant extension of utilities that is going to be required for this development. And at that time, annexation was one of the sticking points that was brought up in the EIC as something they wanted to see prior to funding this request. So we've put that kind of on the back burner while we go through the annexation and zoning process and plat the property, and then we'll carry forward with that later.
Okay. Have you ever done any building projects previously?
Once or twice, yes, sir. I personally have been doing this since 1999. My father, Granger MacDonald, is in the audience. He's been doing this since the 70s. His mother, my grandmother, actually started doing this and taught us both the business. Her first house, I believe, was in 1953, 1951.
Wow. So there's some history.
A little bit.
There's a lot of history.
Yeah, okay, all right. Any other questions?
Were there other speakers?
Do I hear a motion in regard to 7E?
I'll make a motion to move forward with annexation, I guess is what we're saying. Right?
All right.
I'll second.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Got it, okay. All right, there's the vote. It's 5-0. Okay. All right. Okay, 7F is the Economic Development Grant Agreement between the city and the Economic Improvement Corporation and HL Kerr LLC in an amount not to exceed $375,000 to assist with site preparation and redevelopment of the northeast corner of Loop 534 and State Highway 16.
Good evening,
Right.
Mayor and Council. I'm going to run through some brief slides here, and these will be very similar to the presentation that I provided EIC at their June meeting, where they approved this agreement to send forward to you tonight. Basic project summary: this is a redevelopment of 4.4 acres located at the current Econo Lodge site at the intersection, northeast corner of the intersection of 534, Loop 534 and Highway 16. There are additionally two adjacent parcels of 0.3 and 0.9 acres that make that cumulative 4.4 acres. Again, it is located within the current city limits. They are essentially asking to develop and replat the site, combine those three lots into one lot and replat the site to accommodate a 55,000 square foot retail tenant, as well as a standalone pad site, maybe a restaurant, retail. That piece is pending but they have an active lease for the larger retail tenant. They've made a financial assistance request of $375,000 from the EIC for demolition and site improvements, which is allowed per Texas government code. This is the general location indicated within the red square there at the intersection of 534 and Highway 16. This shows the zoning. This is within the gateway zoning corridor. This is just the overall map, as you know, that you approved with the comp plan several weeks ago. This would be located in Strategic Catalyst Area 6. Again, you can see indicated here within the zoom in on Strategic Catalyst Area 6 within that red square area. This is just an excerpt from Strategic Catalyst Area 6 indicating that big box retail is an element that was desired by the community and found to be appropriate within the intersections, particularly within Strategic Catalyst Area 6. Just a little bit of history on the EIC discussion. This initially came to the city from Collette Properties, who was the overall property developer in the February timeframe. We received the application via KDC and reviewed that. Did go to the GO team and was approved in the April timeframe. Initially went to the EIC on April 16th. There were several months of back and forth deliberation, negotiation. Ultimately, we held a public hearing in June, and that was approved by the EIC, therefore sending it to you for the final step in the approval process for the agreement tonight. The basic summary of the agreement is that Collette Properties is acting as HL Kerr LLC, which is a Texas entity. The project is necessary to promote new business enterprises and is limited to site improvements and demolition at that site. The grant is for up to $375,000 based off of a reimbursement basis. So we do have an estimate for what those overall site improvements will be, but if for some reason they ended up being less, it would only be for the reimbursement up to this amount. That full amount is payable upon demolition and site remediation. They anticipate full acquisition of the site and those adjacent parcels by October 1st. With project demolition to occur hopefully by the end of this year. The contract stipulates that it must be done within the next 3 years, but they are anticipating construction being done possibly as early as Thanksgiving, with the hope to be able to turn over the site at the beginning of 2019, so that way that larger retail tenant could open as early as the end of 2019. I know this is a very small print, but this was basically the details that are provided for within the site development work. They're looking at over $400,000 worth of hard costs on site development. This is a rendering of the profile views of the large retail tenant. Again, this is an aerial view of what they anticipate the site to be. On the right-hand side is the 55,000 square foot retail tenant. The white on the left-hand side is the pad site for the smaller tenant. One of the stipulations within the agreement is that there's monumentation signage that is provided for both of the tenants within one nicely crafted monument sign for the overall site. In addition, there's two other key elements. There's a landscaping requirement for the site with hill country motif, similar to what you see across the street at the YO Hotel. And then there, again, the architectural requirements for the building itself for the larger retail tenant that provide some limestone hill country type themed elements. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
The tenant is
the tenant is named.
No, I take that back. I'm talking about the additional tenant. I mean, I know what the major tenant is.
They are still marketing the front pad site, the smaller pad site at this time. They have not released any names yet on that one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't think there's any secret in town who the tenant is.
They just showed us a picture.
Yeah, I know. But I was asking about the other tenant. Yeah. Okay.
I got a question. Why is there no access to 534? Is that something they decided they didn't need?
That's correct. At this time, they were concerned about their tenant is wanting to move very quickly, and they were concerned about permitting with TxDOT on 534. There's some challenges topographically along 534. There's a pretty large drainage area through there, and actually floodplain that goes up to 16 in that area. So there were a lot of costs because they would have to build a bridge, and then there was also the time and permitting issue. So it may be something that they add at a later time, but for now, this is what they have. They do have 2 access points existing onto Highway 16, and they felt like that was adequate.
That was going to be entrance and exit both?
We are working with them on making sure that those are both appropriately done. It is pending. They will have to go through traffic analysis process and go through our normal development process to make sure that those can both be, based off their traffic patterns, can both be entered and exit safely.
And in reality, the decision to go away from 534 entrance was when we dropped the money that we were offering, right? Because originally they were asking for 500,000. They were going to put that entrance off of 534, right?
They were at that time looking at an entrance onto 534. Again, they backed away from that for timing purposes as well as cost purposes.
Yeah. And then the other thing is this is a reimbursement funding agreement basically for demolition and then some other little site stuff. But I guess my question is, if they were to walk away after demolishing the building, they can, and they keep the money, and it goes towards just demolition. Is that, if that was all they were coming to us asking EIC to do, would that have been an appropriately funded thing through EIC? Is that allowable if it was just demolition?
Yes, sir. Demolition and site improvements are absolutely available under Texas Local Government Code for EIC
If it's building towards some new business, correct?
It's preparing the site certainly for a business to come in.
Right, but if all I was doing was demolishing a building, I probably wouldn't be using EIC money to do that because it wouldn't be new business. It would just be clearing my land. And so my question is, why did we, because I actually thought we were doing this, but why did we not put the reimbursement in to kick in when they actually built the now Hobby Lobby? Wouldn't that have gotten us to the proper hook to get the project done?
Yeah. All I can say is the EIC deliberated it thoroughly, and this is the agreement that they decided to move forward with.
Okay, so you don't actually know. Is that?
I don't recall, and I think I was part of those conversations as changing it to, it was reimbursed after demolition was
Well, that
complete.
part of my question is really irrelevant. It's really about whether or not we would want to use EIC money to demolish buildings unless we're getting the economic development that we're getting, which would be the building. And we know that they're going to build the Hobby Lobby, right? So what would have been the harm in putting the hook in there so we don't set the precedent that we're going to EIC for demolishing? That's all. We don't have to debate it. I just wanted to raise the issue. Thanks.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion on that item?
I'll make a motion
7F,
that we approve item number 7F, which is the Economic Development Grant Agreement between the City of Kerrville Economic Improvement Corporation and H.L. Kerr LLC in an amount not to exceed $375,000 to assist with the site preparation.
I second.
All right, okay. Motion second. Okay. All right. 7G, Development Agreement between the City of Kerrville, Texas and Medina River Estates.
Okay. Hello again. All right.
Remember how Drew went real fast?
I'm going to go as fast as I can, Mayor. All right. So again, project summary on this one. This is a 225-acre undeveloped piece of property that is in the southern quadrant of the city. The developer is looking at developing this into large lots, 10 to 20-plus acre subdivision. It is located within the current city limits along Highway 16, directly south of the existing River Hill subdivision. It does have significant topographic and infrastructure challenges for the site. The city staff entered into negotiations with this developer some months ago based off of council feedback, and have been working through the development agreement deal points that you see today. As you'll see on this on the screen, you've got Highway 16 essentially that runs along this corridor. This is the existing River Hill subdivision. The property in question is marketed within the red area. You will see that there are some high pressure lines that traverse the property going to the water tower, which is indicated in the kind of turquoise color there. This is the current zoning. This property is zoned for residential R1 purposes at this time. This is your newly adopted master thoroughfare plan. You will see along the southern portion of the map, there is the red dotted line that does indicate a proposed primary arterial roadway connecting Highway 16 to Highway 173. Again, this is not a specific alignment, but simply a mode of connection between those two. The property in question is marked within the thick blue line there along Highway 16.
Would you go back just a second to that one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what's the impact of that roadway running along the Kerrville Shriner Park?
Mm-hmm.
What's the impact on the park?
Yeah, at this time that line's not shown within the park. It is shown alongside, but again, it's not a specific alignment. It's simply showing that generally, you know, the community saw that there needs to be a connection generally within that corridor. So it may not end up being exactly along that parkway.
There's a time limit on that easement, that right-of-way easement that they're granting?
Yes, sir. I haven't gotten into the deal points yet, but there is a 50-foot of right-of-way easement that is called for within the development agreement that does have a stipulation that, you know, the right-of-way would be utilized within the next 50 years.
Okay.
Otherwise, it would revert to the property owner. So, again, jumping into the deal points here, essentially within the development agreement, the developer agrees to provide shared access points onto Highway 16. There's approximately 20 lots that they're looking at. There's 5 access points that they've been permitted by TxDOT, so they will have shared access points to that, so there's not 20 driveways going across that stretch of Highway 16. They are going to provide a 20-foot utility easement along Highway 16 that is adjacent to, but not overlapping, an existing 20-foot private wastewater easement. Again, providing that 50-foot of right-of-way easement along that southern side where the thoroughfare is indicated within your thoroughfare plan. In addition, there is a overlapping 20-foot water easement within that same 50-foot right-of-way corridor. They would also be providing new right-of-way easements for cul-de-sacs along the 3 termination points that abut directly to the River Hill neighborhood. Those are located at Green Tree, Hickory Hills, and Ridgewood. And then they would also be responsible for installing a new water main that loops through the property and connects to the River Hill subdivision. Yes, sir.
How many entrances to 16, Highway 16? 5.
They're permitted for 5, and I'll show you. I'll jump ahead here. Oh, maybe. There we go. You can kind of see on that northern boundary is Highway 16. You can see kind of those bubble out areas. Those are what they anticipate to be the shared access points.
Okay, one more question. Is there a formal contract agreement or whatever with River Hill?
No, sir.
Okay.
All right, let me just go back here to the city elements within the development agreement summary. This agreement does waive the requirements to plat the overall property per state code. It does allow for the installation of individual septic systems, waiving the requirement for these large lots to have to connect to the city sewer. It also does waive the requirement to extend the city sewer along 16. Again, it does provide the easement for it and for the installation potentially in the future. And it does waive the requirement to build a sidewalk along that stretch of Highway 16. Again, this is the proposed concept plan at this point, which could change in the future, but essentially they are large acreage lots. They're also, one of the key points is that they cannot further subdivide these lots, so these will remain large lots. Be happy to answer your questions you may have.
I got one question.
Yes, sir.
Talked to some people in River Hill. They're concerned about added traffic on River Hill Boulevard. Do we have anything when we're expected to do the thoroughfare road? Anytime? I know you said 50 years till it goes back to the owner, but are we planning for something in the next 10 years or anything?
Right now, there are no active plans. Obviously, we are trying to put together right-of-way as properties develop to minimize any potential right-of-way costs for the community in the future. This is how roads get built. You work towards building right-of-way, and then you work towards a plan to have construction of roadways. So certainly these 20 lots aren't creating a major influx of traffic. In fact, the vast majority of these residents will be utilizing Highway 16, not River Hill Boulevard.
Yeah, but say they're dropping their kid off at Tybee or something, they're probably going to cut through to get to Loop 534. That's just a concern that they've had.
Sure.
Just wondering what our plans were.
Sure.
Do we have a gut instinct on how, where in our thoroughfare priority list would this one fall? Is it one that we're looking at strongly or no?
We'd have to have the property on the other side to get back over to 173, and that's, who knows when that would happen.
Okay.
I know the county has looked pretty seriously at this with TxDOT, but TxDOT doesn't have the funding to do this either, and
Okay.
I don't believe the county does. So it's really going to be developer-driven.
Okay.
I just want to clarify, developers here too. I hope I'm reading the right draft, but there's no 50-year expiration anymore. Remember we had that in an earlier draft?
Okay.
No, it's just.
So it's just
They-
there.
They're going to grant it to us.
Okay.
Okay. One's a little technicality thing. You say they can't subdivide any further, right? So the way I was reading it, say I'm one of these lots out here, nothing prevents them from subdividing down the line, right? Say I buy one of these, say I'm out by where, to the left of the screen, really. If I buy one of those, am I allowed to subdivide there?
Yes, sir.
So that development agreement rule applies back to that guy.
That's
Okay.
correct. The overall property.
Okay, and then just one thing, I'd like to thank staff for getting the easements granted and the water facilities approved prior to the building permits being issued. That's a good thing. So.
Okay. What is your pleasure on this development agreement? Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the development agreement.
Okay.
I'll second it.
And
I'll second.
Wagner, second. Okay.
Second.
Votes are all in.
We are being awfully agreeable tonight.
Just follow my lead, man. I'm making the motions. We're going right through it.
Yeah, right. Okay. We're gonna pull 7H because there is some background information and material the staff is working on. And they will get that to us and we will come back with that at a later time. All right, 7I, Kerrville's Sports Complex Improvement Projects.
Good evening again. Pursuant to last month's meeting, this item was deferred to this month, so we're bringing the topic back to you this evening. As a reminder, staff provided a recommendation of projects to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, which they unanimously approved. And at your meeting last month, you authorized us to purchase the lights, which we did. And then tonight is the remainder of the projects that we were asked to bring back to you. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Do you have any questions on this one?
Yeah, not so much questions. Go ahead.
Is this a time, can we add things to the list?
Yeah, the council has the discretion to modify this in any way as a body.
I'd like to add some things if we could, or at least bring them up and see what council thinks. I did a lot of umpiring this year. I was able to kind of survey the kids, coaches, and the fans on what they would like to see. The infield dirt was a big concern in the base pass. You have kids that should be running pretty fast and they're digging in and they're pretty slow going down first, and it could be a safety issue. I think that would be on the top of my list. And then also scoreboards. We just had a Little League tournament and we had to bring a little kind of makeshift PVC looking scoreboard to keep the score. And maybe we can at least put that on the list. That would be nice for our tournaments. And heard some concerns about some soccer goals. I guess the 8-year-olds are using 6-year-old soccer goals and they're kind of hitting their foreheads on it. Maybe we can get bigger goals for them.
I don't believe that anybody's hit their forehead on it. But we did work with Hill Country Youth prior to ordering the goals, and that's something that we agreed on, was the goals and the size of the goals. So that's something that it was recently brought up to us a couple days ago, so we will readdress that issue with them.
Okay.
But to my knowledge, nobody's been injured.
Okay. Oh, and there is a dent on the back of the DBAT building. I'm not sure how it got there. It looks like one of the little buggies that they drive around out there might have hit it. Nice to fix that.
That was during construction. Yeah. If I can comment on the infields, we know that was an issue right after construction was finished, and we did rework the fields. Most of the fields have been reworked, and it's just going to take a little bit more time and more play to get them to impact a little bit more. Right now, we haven't heard really much complaints from anybody other than the one representative from Little League, and DBAT's been fine with it. But we do know it was an issue. We have addressed it, and it'll continue to get better with the play. The scoreboards is something that DBAT's actually working on. They're working on some private funding for that. They usually run about $10,000 a piece. So that's something that if we did do scoreboards for all the fields would eat up a big chunk of this project money.
I'd like to see them on the list, and then if they do it, that's great, scratch it off, but at least put it on the list and know that we're looking at these issues.
Right.
Yeah, the scoreboards, yeah, and we looked at some prices and I was seeing like $5,000 and $6,000, but bottom line is, worst case, if it's not bumped up into the priority list, there's no harm in having it sit down there where these optional 10 and 11 are. I would even put some of it over the 10 and 11, but regardless, that's part of the discussion here. The playability thing, with all due respect, the compaction problem that's out there, you're going to get less complaints now because there's less use right this minute. But we're talking about kitty litter type material, and it doesn't compact over use. It's going to constantly be a beach. So it's not to say that nobody in the Parks Department did this. Okay, so nobody's complaining about the Parks Department. It's just a playability issue that I would prefer to set up the Parks Department with fields that are proper so that he just maintains them as opposed to having to fix them. And the preliminary guesstimate on doing all, 11 fields, is less than $50,000. It's like between $45,000 and $50,000 to make it right. And then he's left with just, he being Shane, is left with just maintaining the fields. I would prefer to see him have a complex that's in maintenance mode rather than fixed mode. And I would argue, I would like to see that moved up the priority list, but at least have it on the priority list. And certainly I would put playability, I would prefer to see playability issues, whichever they are, kind of ahead of window dressing issues.
Could I ask a question? Do you mean it's too soft? Is that what
Yeah,
you're
it's
saying?
like if you've ever, yeah, it's like playing on a beach. It's to a certain extent. It's not
The
as
whole field is?
the dirt,
The dirt.
the
The
dirt
dirt.
part,
Okay, the dirt
and it's
part.
most exaggerated or whatever you want to call it in the home plate areas and the
First
to
base
first base and third base lines. It's still the same out there. And when we had the most recent Little League stuff out there, it was better because the field was being made wet. But once we started playing, it was pretty quickly the catcher's boxes were, it was a beach. And so, like I said, the Parks didn't do this, and it wasn't a design flaw. It was actually, it was an execution of the design by our developer. But in any case, the fix is, I think, relatively speaking, not that much. But anyways, that's what that was.
Actually, I saw some traffic on this today, email, Texas Multichem weighed in as well as DBAT, and then an idea about cost if we wanted to completely rework the fields. Do you have some information about that?
Staff did speak with Texas Multichem last week, and they said that the processes and the procedures that we've been doing is exactly what they would recommend, and they wouldn't recommend us doing anything different. He said essentially doing anything different would be a waste of funds, and to continue to do it in what we're doing, it's just going to take the time.
Well, because I talked to him too. He was the guy that was going to speak, and he was out there during the year too. And again, nobody, including me, are trying to say the park's doing something wrong. And it's not something that I'm arguing to say is the first thing on the list. I'm just saying the kitty litter doesn't compact. It's just not going to happen. So Shane's going to have to either continually shave off a little bit here and there, put some red dirt in, till it in, or just start him off. And I don't know. That's really what you'd be weighing out when you actually expended it. I don't see the harm putting it on the list. As far as the cost estimate, that's who I'm getting it from, is Multicam.
Ashley, if he just continues if you continue doing what you're doing, do you have an estimate of how long? Has he given you an idea of how long it will take it to get it where it should be?
No, he hasn't. It's just over time. It's a process that we're doing. We're rolling, we're dragging, we're tilling. It's just a process that's going to take. But we've reworked most of the fields already, and I think it's just field 3 that we're having was the biggest issue. So, what was his recommendation, if I may ask, for the
as far as
resolution?
How to fix it? So basically, the top of it is too deep of this conditioner, the kitty litter, and the recommendation was to scrape it all off, get some red dirt, just basic dirt, to grade it off, and then till in some of the conditioner, and you're left with, instead of this much, you put this much conditioner on. You're left with a lot of extra conditioner because there's just too much on there, and you do that on each field.
I would say that you've heard the concerns. You will get back to us, and it can be in writing, saying, okay, here's what we've looked at, here's who we've talked to, here's what we're going to do at this point.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Mayor,
Okay.
the balance that's left is about 185,000, and the list that you all have is 303,500. And so we would intend, without further direction from the council, we would intend to just go down this priority until the money was gone. Okay, so in many of these items, like $6,000 to pave a road, that's basically materials, that wouldn't even come back to you because it's just a nominal cost.
Okay.
But the important thing for us to have direction on would be, do y'all see a different priority here? And if so, how would you rearrange that and then take action so that we can just start moving down the list until the money runs out?
Okay, but I think Councilman Baruti has talked about playability being higher on the list.
That
I
would be
don't
high
think
on the list for
tonight,
me.
I don't think tonight we can go through the priority list and say, well, I want this number 1, I want this number 2. But I trust that the concerns that have been addressed, you'll somehow get back to us on and let us know what's decided.
That's not what he just said. So what we're basically doing tonight, we're either approving this priority list and they're just going to go check them off. They've already checked off 1. We approved that, the number 2, the soccer lights. But the rest of it, they're just going to go 1 through whatever until the money runs out. So the concerns I'm raising, they won't make into the list.
Well,
That's
then
the
in that case, then we need a motion to table.
I still have a question, Ashley. As far as fertigation, how are we fertilizing right now?
Manually,
Manually?
Mhm.
And that's with a machine or actually?
with the machine.
We got a spreader,
The
right?
spreader.
Yes, we have a spreader equipment.
And how often are we doing that? How's that in relation to the fertigation system?
Typically, we fertilize about 4 times a year seasonally. With fertigation, it'll occur about every couple of weeks, and then we will also supplement with the manual granular fertilization as well. The fertigation will not replace manual fertilization.
You'll be doing something besides fertilization in the fertigation system too, right?
We'll be doing both, yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so sounds like to me we're either going to say yes to this and you're going to go down the priority list that we've got, or we're going to table it, come back with a different priority list.
Mayor, you have a speaker as well.
You what?
You have a speaker as well.
Okay. Fred Speck. Dr. Speck.
My name is Fred Speck. I have an office at 401 Junction Highway, and I live on Goat Creek Road. and I would like to thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm here on behalf of the Hill Country Youth Soccer Association, and we were privileged to use a new soccer complex for the spring 2018 season. And there are a lot of things we really like about the complex. There are a few things we would like to modify. Now, first of all, I'd like to say that the parks and city staff have been extremely accommodating. And we've had some little snafus that they fixed, and we appreciate them listening to all our concerns. There was probably a misunderstanding that was more likely our fault. Not putting anybody at fault, I'm just saying that we probably didn't communicate with them well enough, and we would like to request 3 pairs of goals to accommodate an age group. The U8 group compromises about 25% of the soccer players that played. There were over 125 of them playing in the spring. And the goals that we used were for 6-year-olds and 4-year-olds, and they were 4 feet high and 6 feet wide. We would like to request our portion of the pie to get 3 pairs of goals. And the goals for the 8-year-olds that are recommended by the UF Youth Soccer and FIFA are 6 feet tall and 18 feet wide. Now, it's true we didn't have any of these tall kids run into the goal. But as a safety issue, I'd rather fix it before they do, because a head injury is pretty serious, and we would not like to have that liability or safety issue. And so with the number of kids we have playing, we would, as the ASO and Hill Country Youth Soccer Association, we recommend that we fix a problem before it happens and get some larger goals. And as far as cost goes, we talked with Shane Heffernan about this about a month ago, and he said that the goals would be $3,600. Now, I don't know if that's 1 pair or 3 pairs. If it's 1 pair, that's $10,800 if it matches the goals he has out there now. I looked through our brochures. The cheapest goals that we can get will cost $4,000 for 3 pairs. They're aluminum and they're square. They have the higher quality goals out there that are round aluminum painted white, and my source was $8,850. If he has the deluxe, they're probably $10,800. So we're looking at anywhere between $4,000 and $11,000 for 3 pairs of goals. And so I would hope that we would be able to fit our piece of pie on the priority list. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
So, Mayor, on that issue, I think Ashley and I had a little bit of a discussion. We're going to discuss it some more. There might be a way to switch out some of the goals that have already been put into process to order, but we need to kind of work through that. May I make the suggestion, because of timing and turf and so forth, you know, growing season, that if we were to do just 3, 4, and 5, which adds up to $122,000, you still have $63,000 left to do something else, and we can come back as we get more experience with the field and we hear more information and better figures, then perhaps we can make more decisions. But we really need to get rolling on those 3 items in order to make ready for next season.
All right, 122,000. Okay.
I'll make that motion.
All right.
I make the motion that we.
Mr. Bird, one more speaker.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, do we have another speaker? Bedford?
No, it's okay.
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 All right.
So I'm making the motion that we direct staff to move forward with 3, 4, and 5 from the list, and we will have further discussions about what to do with the leftover.
I'll second.
Okay. All right, all in favor, let it be known by your vote.
Sorry, I'm typing the motion. Okay.
Folks, I've got to tell you, I'm I'm so old that I think you have to raise your right hand to vote, not just push a screen. But anyway. Okay, Drew?
For you is a request for a sidewalk waiver at 1208 First Street. This project did go before the Zoning Board of Adjustment, was approved for a setback to the, or a variance to the setback requirements. As you can see in the aerial on your screen there, there are no sidewalks on this block. Other than the park to the south, there are no sidewalks in the adjacent area. It is not a through street to the elementary, or excuse me, to the sixth grade campus. Staff recommends approval of the waiver based on the conditions of the existing area.
Okay.
Pleased to answer any questions.
I got one. Do we have a timeline when we're expecting to review the sidewalk ordinance? 'Cause we keep running across these, and some of these are in places like this where it just doesn't make sense.
Right. We do not have a time frame yet. That's one of the items on our list of codes and ordinances to be reviewed by a committee to be appointed by council.
That committee is going to be appointed by you all, at least the creation of that committee in August, with the idea that the approved budget would have funding to proceed. And we've already developed a list of the codes based upon a lot of input from you all, including sidewalks and a number of other items.
So you're talking about a committee not just about sidewalks, you're talking about a committee to look at the codes.
Yes.
Right, including the sidewalk ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the waiver for
I'll second it.
sidewalk.
Okay, we've got a motion second. Let me just say that earlier, I voted against a variance for the sober home. Here, I'm going to vote for this waiver, but I see them really as very different issues.
Yeah.
But generally, I'm not going to vote for variances, but this one seems reasonable.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. All in favor indicate, please. Okay, it's 5-0. Okay, the next 7K, resolution number 26, 2018, creating a committee to review the Kerrville 2050 comprehensive plan regarding the issues of property maintenance and proactive code enforcement, and authorizing council to make appointments thereto. Let me say that this is one half of my recommendation at the last council meeting when I made the motion to adopt the comprehensive plan as presented, and then have a committee to look at these issues and the other issues that we'll come to later in another meeting that Councilman Vogel had raised. My intention in this was that we had two council members who had significant concerns about parts of the comprehensive plan. And I felt like that we needed to move ahead on the comprehensive plan. As detailed as it is, as long as it is, we could go on over it forever. But I felt like it needed to be adopted so we could move ahead. But I also wanted to honor the concerns of these two councilmen. So that's what the whole idea of this is. And so there is a formula we have in here in terms of setting up the committee, and we can talk about that in just a minute. But comments and questions?
I got a question. What are you expecting to get out of this committee? Just to satisfy my concerns, or do you actually have concerns?
I really don't have the same concerns that you have or Councilman Broody, but my thing is when you have a plan that's taken 9 months in the process and you've been on the committee and everything else, but have these concerns, I don't want to ignore them. I want us to put together a group who looks at it and says, hey, this point was legitimate, or, maybe it isn't. So that's my interest.
I was going to add a little input too. The people who will be pulled to be on this committee may not share the same concerns. But it'll be important to hear how they view the wording that is in there, and perhaps we can come to a common ground. But rather than assume we have the answers, the committee will help us, I expect, because they were part of the planning. That's where we're going to pull from. And I'm curious to know how they came up with some of their decisions, and if they do have concerns now, and perhaps they won't, perhaps they will, but that's what the committee will bring, is more input from them.
Right.
One of my concerns has been, do we have clear direction for them? Do they?
This committee, you mean?
The committee, yes. And I know that we say concerns over goals and strategies, and to address those, but we don't have an issue in front of us necessarily for a lot of them. So I just want to make sure that they don't come together and say, what are we really here for? I think they need very clear direction from us.
I would echo her concerns. Basically, my concern is this. If the majority of council doesn't see these as valid concerns, this committee, if all it's doing is weighing in and saying, yeah, there's a concern, or no, there's not, I think it's pointless. You're basically going to poll the same people and get the same result. If what we're going to really do, which was my goal in the first place when I suggested a committee, was to actually move forward with implementing the proactive property maintenance code enforcement with some study and thought behind the implementation, then I think we're giving them direction to do something. If all we're doing is having them look at it, studies have already been done. All we have to do is read those. We can already determine without a committee whether there's a problem or not. And I think, that's what I was trying to do, and most of the people said what they thought about it. So I'm not sure I see a value in this committee set up the way it's being set up. I would like the problem looked at, but I would like it looked at the point of implementation. And if it's meant to appease my concerns, I don't think this really gets us there, and I would rather not waste 15 people's time doing that.
But implementation might take a while.
Yes, it would, but at the same time, I would also suggest that when I was looking at that possibility of a committee doing it, it wasn't going to be just citizens, it wasn't going to be a huge number, it was going to involve staff, because as far as implementation of this one policy, that doesn't have to, without any studies, it's pretty, other than manpower, you could be implementing proactive code enforcement pretty well right now. So the time involved is to get the mitigating factors right. So, which in my view, they should be getting right. We should make those right anyways. And so I say, let's get on that. And so I don't know, like I said, well, I've already said it, so I don't need to say it twice, but that's where I was thinking on it.
But would you be comfortable then if we didn't appoint this committee?
Absolutely, because I don't, as it's set up, like I said, I don't think it's going to appease any of my concerns, because I already believe there's an issue if we just if we enact this code without any mitigating efforts. I already believe that's a problem, and some people don't believe it's a problem. Creating a committee to rehash that seems kind of, we've already done that.
I will agree, because the few people I have talked to about being on the committee are like, well, why? We just went through this exercise, and this is what we came up with. So I agree with you.
Right.
We were, I think, trying to...
Right, you were trying to appease my concerns. Well, frankly, this isn't doing that, because my concern isn't with the the implementation of this. My concern is with the implementation of this without the study that goes behind the mitigating factors.
Okay, then I am really all right in pulling this.
Yeah.
My intention, as I said, was to honor the concerns that both of you had, but if it doesn't really do it, and it's a lot of time and people, then let's not do it.
Yeah, I would hope that the suggestion would be changed, and we don't have to do this today, but my suggestion would be to get after this concept, this policy, we'll just call it that, the proactive, that whole deal. Get after that. We can use a committee to do it, but let's get after it right away so that we can get to the act of implementing it with the concerns being addressed.
Okay.
So,
all right.
If we want to do that as a committee, we can push that off to a discussion another time, but that's what I'd be looking at. You can, go off and talk to community and see what you think about it, but that's what I was hoping for.
All right. Then I would say we pull 7K. And
with the idea maybe of bringing it back.
Yeah, with the idea of
some
looking at it
version
in
of
some
it.
other form.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So can I ask about that, just so staff is doing what we're supposed to be doing? So right now, we do proactive code enforcement. We don't do it every month because some months are heavier than
Correct.
others. And we don't have time to do it because we have more complaints in certain months. So we do it. Next year, in next year's budget, we're not budgeting more staff to do more code enforcement. So it's
Okay.
not gonna be anytime soon, and it's a 30-year plan. So I'm not really sure what we're bringing back and when.
Okay, well, can I answer it?
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
because what I would hope is, this is the window of opportunity we have. Because if what you're saying is we can't step up our enforcement right now, this is exactly when we should probably look at it, because we're not in a time crunch to start doing it. So maybe this is the time to get the ball rolling on, because the issue isn't what we're doing now. The issue is the enhanced version of this whole thing. Whether it's adopting actually an actual property maintenance code or stepped up proactive enforcement, that whole stuff. This would be the time to begin that process because, we all know that it takes more than a day. So that's what would bring it back.
Okay. Okay. Do we have,
Is city staff, are you comfortable with?
We can have some more conversations. I'm not sure exactly timing and so forth, but the property maintenance code, for example, that would probably be something that we look at in another a year's time. We want to focus on the development code stuff first. But I hear the point as far as having some thought behind it and
Okay.
a lot of input.
Right, so what we bring back maybe doesn't involve a committee with staff. Maybe it's something that brings back a committee with citizens that are gonna look at this and present something to staff to get feedback at some point future, but that would get us ahead of the curve on it.
Okay.
That's really what I'm looking at.
okay, do we have items for future agendas?
Did you know the city manager's update today?
Next meeting.
Can I ask questions? Like, I guess earlier I was thinking about it in soccer fields. Are we doing effluent water yet, or when are we, is that online?
Yes.
Okay. I know you gave us an email that it is coming, but I never got the,
You're going to have an update on Friday.
okay.
Okay, and I got a question that jumped out at me. I didn't realize we were doing this, but there was a Tennis Pro RFQ that was put out, is that correct? And it had listed in there the possibility of this meeting, council looking at it, so I guess I was just gonna ask, what's the status of that?
I think it's the next meeting, isn't it?
Yeah,
Is
we're,
it-
scheduled for
Okay.
the next meeting. We're in the process of still reviewing through that and working through contract.
Okay. Where did I see that? Was that online that it was
May have been on
posted?
your pending agenda list.
Is it still
Or
an
your
open RFQ online
project
by
list
chance?
from,
Okay, I think that's probably where I saw it though, but anyways, okay.
All right, let me ask you in regard to executive session. We have got a very detailed matter to consider, actually a couple of matters. Do we want to pursue those tonight? Or do we want to hold them to another time?
You like going home early?
No.
10 o'clock news is
Yeah.
not till 10.
I know,
I'm telling you.
We're here, let's do
Yeah,
it.
because I'm not sure the next agenda will be I hope it is shorter,
Yeah.
but what if it's?
Okay, all right.
just- Would you
Okay.
agree with that?
Then we will go into executive session.
I think
Yeah.
somebody has to.
Let me make a
Ah,
motion.
yeah, all right, okay.
Right.
Got a motion to go into executive session.
Let me make a motion for going to executive session under 551087 for item 9A and under 551072 under for 9B. That's the motion.
Okay.
All those in favor, raise your hand.
Yes, sir.
Everybody vote to go in. Did y'all vote? Yeah. All right.
Bring us out. It's 9:18, we're coming out of executive session, and we have nothing to report from the executive session. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Bruce.